Welcome, I'm Morrey Thomas, publisher of the News and Press in Darlington. Today I am joined by Darlington County Sheriff Wayne Byrd. Welcome, Sheriff Byrd.
Thank you, Morrey.
Thank you for being here with us today.
Appreciate the invitation.
Sheriff Byrd, you face Democratic challenger Tony Chavis in the June 14th primary. Sheriff, please tell us about yourself, your qualifications, and your visions for Darlington County if re-elected sheriff.
Well, I was born and raised right here in Darlington County. I've spent my entire life here serving the people of this county. I started out in law enforcement, Society Hill, in 1987. I moved to Darlington Police Department in 89, and I worked there until I was elected sheriff in 2009. So I've got a long history in law enforcement and kind of a varied history from a very small rural department to the sheriff's office, which is much larger and serves the entire county and has some small urban areas, but still largely rural. As far as the vision for the county and for the sheriff's office, I want to see the county continue to grow. When I was elected in 09, we had a reputation and history of having a fairly violent county. I'm proud to say that right now, Darlington County has the lowest violent crime rate of any county in the PD. We're second in the second lowest property crime rate in the upper PD, which I think are things to be proud of. Doesn't mean we're where we want to be, but it means we're headed in the right direction. So we'd like to see those crime rates fall even further, and we'd like to see us have the lowest rate of any county in the state. But that's a goal for later on.
Sheriff, you mentioned that the crime rate has decreased since your tenure as sheriff. Do you have a sense of how Darlington County compares in crime rate as other counties in the state? Are we stacked high or low? What's our ranking in the state?
Well, as I said, for the PD area, we're one of the lowest. And in the state, our rate is significantly lower than the state as a whole. Now, there are other counties that are doing a much better job, and there are counties that are not doing a good job at all. We're kind of in the middle right now, and certainly we want to see Darlington County in that upper reach of the lowest rates. So that's something to work towards.
Excellent, excellent. Sheriff, Darlington County is facing yet another tight budget year. You're familiar with tight budget years. And many county employees, including your deputies, get paid less in similar jobs in similar counties. What can you as sheriff, or you in the sheriff's office, do to maintain a roster of qualified officers to fulfill your duties and protect our citizens?
Well, we've been lucky to attract some good officers at the sheriff's office, and it's certainly not because of the pay. You have to look hard for people who are dedicated, people who generally have a vested interest in this area, family, business, some connection here, and then that dedication, that will to serve the public, to look beyond not only what's good for you, but what's good for the community as a whole. And those are tough employees to find and tough employees to hold on to. I like to remind county council that the same people that make a good deputy, they make a good employee anywhere. They come to work on time, they do their job. You don't have to, supervise them continuously to make sure they're self-starters. And those are the people that private industry is looking for. The private industry is much more willing to pay a higher salary than what we're able to pay. So it makes retention and recruitment very difficult.
Understood. Sheriff, the South Carolina Department of Corrections has repeatedly urged the Darlington County Correction Center to hire several more guards, which would bring our facility into compliance. As sheriff, how will you work towards accomplishing this goal?
Well, we've presented council with a couple of different options. It's really a matter of funding, just as you were speaking about earlier. As sheriff, you're not allowed to hire people without approval of county council. They approve our budget, and then whatever our budget is, we have to try and live within that budget. I think the Department of Corrections says we need 10 additional officers to meet state standards. That's a pretty high mark. If it was one or two, we could maybe find a way to cut some corners here or there, and maybe hire one or two with council's approval. But to hire 10 at one time, that's almost impossible in today's budgetary climate. Council's either going to have to come up with a plan, a long-term plan, to add these people gradually, a few a year, 2, 3, until we get to that mark, or either you're going to have to see some drastic cuts made somewhere else in the county to make up that difference. And anytime you start talking about cuts, it's a very controversial thing. And certainly, we haven't lobbied for any specific cuts anywhere in the county, but we're kind of under the gun right now. With the passage of the PREA Act at the federal level, they're making mandates to the state and to the local agencies. Department of Corrections making mandates on us, and all these mandates come without any funding. So it's really got to be a give and take between us and the council to figure out a way to come up with this. And quite frankly, I don't have an answer right now as to how we're going to reach that goal.
Understood. I think the 1 or 2 employees at a time pattern or path may be our most effective way. But again, that's largely up to council.
Right. And council's been aware of this. We made them aware as soon as we got that report a couple of years ago. And they've been studying it, but they haven't taken action on it. And I'm not slamming them for failure to act. But,
Certainly.
But when you're in a tough budgetary condition, as we've been the last couple of years, some of those things get kicked down the road. But unfortunately, we're reaching a point where we're not going to be able to put it off any longer. We're going to have to come up with a solid plan that the Department of Corrections will accept.
Understood. Sheriff, Governor Haley in June of 2015 signed into law a requirement that all South Carolina law enforcement agencies will use body cameras. What is your perspective on the use, the advantages and the disadvantages of using body cameras, and how will you follow into this compliance? What will you do to make our Sheriff's Department compliant with this mandate?
Well, I'm proud to say that Sheriff's Association, South Carolina Sheriff's Association, was integral in the passage of this legislation. As a matter of fact, we helped draft the legislation, and the bill that was ultimately passed was almost identical to the one that we proposed. So we're very proud of that fact at the Sheriff's Association. The bill itself, unlike a lot of the things we were just talking about, this one is a mandate, but it does come with some money down the road. The state has made contingencies to fund the camera programs. It's underfunded right now. We've gotten our policies approved, and we're in the process of applying for funding to put cameras on all of our people. But we're not waiting on that state funding. We've already purchased a few cameras ourselves from grants and other monies that we've been able to come up with. The detention center a couple of years ago, I think about 2 years ago, outfitted every detention officer in the jail with a body camera. And people might say, well, why would you do the detention center first instead of the road deputies? The detention center has a little more leeway with some of their funding than we do. Plus, when you're talking about the difference between outfitting, say 12, 15 detention officers versus 75 deputies on the other side. It's much easier to fund the 12 or 15 than it is the full department. And we were able to use that as kind of a test for us to see how the cameras that we were looking at would work, how they downloaded, how hard it was to store and retrieve data. So our program's kind of been going silently and moving along. We're starting now to issue some cameras to our road deputies.
Does the use of body camera footage to you, Sheriff, enable you to evaluate the performance of your deputies in the field so you can monitor and potentially alter training patterns?
Well, it's a good tool on both sides. It makes the officer much more accountable. It also has a similar effect sometimes to a criminal. A criminal that knows they're being filmed will behave differently than someone who thinks they're not being filmed. And likewise with an officer, you would hope that our officers behave the same regardless of whether they're on camera or not. And certainly with the climate as it is today, you never know when you're being filmed, whether you've got a body camera or not. There's liable to be somebody standing on the sidewalk filming you with a cell phone, and quite often that is happening. So it's a great tool for us, not only for accountability, but as you said, for training. It holds them accountable, make sure that our officers are following the guidelines and the policies that we set.
Yes. Sheriff, can you explain or tell us about your plan for increasing security at the Darlington County Courthouse as we know it today before a new one is potentially built?
The problems with the courthouse right now, based on security, that courthouse was never designed to be a secure building. It was designed to be as open as possible. If you look at it, it sits 25, 30 feet from the street. It's easy, and as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, it's pretty simple to drive a car right up to the actual door of the courthouse, whether by accident or intentional. It has 4 entrances. Everybody entering the building uses the same elevators. Prisoners, judges, the public, employees. So you've got a huge mix of people in a common area. And years ago, that was a popular thing. But in today's climate, it's not a good idea to have that kind of mix of people. You would want your judges to have a secure entrance. You'd want to be bringing prisoners and people that are in custody in and out of an area where they're the only ones there, where they don't mix with the public, and there's not a chance of them attacking somebody or being passed some kind of contraband. So the current building that we have, it's almost impossible to secure a building like that without turning it into a detention center type setting. And certainly it shouldn't be that. You know, that is the people's building. That's their courthouse. They should be able to come and go unfettered pretty much as they please. So it is a very tight balancing act there to try and secure the building and yet leave access for the everyday man just to walk in and conduct his business and not be accosted by, someone trying to do something other than common business. If you go there to pay your taxes, you don't want to have to stand in line for 45 minutes to go through a metal detector and be searched and all those things. But some of those things are, unfortunately, are kind of required today, just from the climate. We certainly think that there might be some ways to do better with what we have. It might be possible to design sort of an entrance for the building outside of where the building is now, close off some of those alternate entrances. But those things cost money, and it takes some study to see if it'll work and how it'll work.